LinkedIn or not?
Hi, you
Oh,
are.
it's
In
I
fact,
am okay. Hi.
wow. I mean, I'm telling you, it is Tuesday,
Yeah.
the 5th of July. We had a little technical difficulty there. Thank you for any of you who are watching and waiting for us to show up. I am Saudia Davis, and this is Melissa G. Wilson.
Yes.
And we are joining you every other Tuesday to talk about your worth, who you are, not necessarily the sum total of what's in your bank account, but who you are as a person and the value of who you are and how that translates into wealth. And as an author, myself, Melissa, as an author and publisher, we do believe that there is prosperity in publishing. So, Melissa, how are you doing? We went through some technical difficulty there. Yeah. I've switched up my background.
And your hair. And your hair. So I'm doing well, being very empathic. I do want to take a moment to acknowledge on the day of our country celebrating its freedom. There are so many people who feel anything but in the wake of the tragedy yesterday in Highland Park. And I wanted to take even just 30 seconds for a moment of silence, because so much of what is about worth is your worth is understanding caring, and caring and compassion always rule, and they add to your worth. And so anyone, just who wants to acknowledge the pain that they may be feeling for the loss of lives and injuries and the calamities that are occurring regularly because of the, I would call it unrestrained gun laws, that we need to do something about what's happening here. It's time. It's just time, and a lot of people who haven't spoken before, I'm sure, will. So let's take a moment and just
pause and honor the value and the worth of human beings that were lost yesterday.
Yes. Thank you. And with that, what we're here for is to be authentic, to share, to care, and to talk about what worth means. In the 25 years that I spent working with traditional publishers, going out to corporations all over the country, and now having worked with 160 authors myself who are thought leaders, I've had the privilege of sitting and listening deeply as we work on their books that are focused on making a difference. And I made a promise a number of years ago, this is my 11th year, that I won't work with anyone who isn't passionate about making a difference in the world. And that's really what worth is about, is understanding if you have a gift of expertise, and I believe everybody has some strength. And I say regularly to you, Saudia, and others, you can't leverage from weakness. You can only leverage from strength. And when we're talking about worth, I recommend looking at, even if you have in your mind, you only have 5% worth. Again, it's in your mind. The goal is to leverage from that strength and to grow with it. Our focus is on publishing and content creation because that's the core of how we're communicating, how we're connecting. And we're looking at building a community that recognizes that we do have worth and we can offer it to support one another. And in that value, there will be so much that can be realized. And when I used to be on the speaking circuit before I dedicated myself to helping other authors, because I felt I could make a bigger difference that way after writing 17 of my own books and 6 different wonderful publishers, strong publishers, I decided this is how I want to amplify my worth and help others amplify theirs. So one of the things I would say, because a lot of the books I wrote were on networking, and I'm bringing it back in now. And I created a methodology, published it with the first chief marketing officer of Motorola and Networlding in Chicago, where we're both from here now. Hit number 10 overall categories for an entire year. And I partnered with the Chicagoland Chamber, and we did boot camps. And I took 1,000 people through the process. It was wonderful. I did revitalization events for the city. At one point, Crane said, "You're named me best networker in Chicago." And I said, "Well, that's really nice, but what are you going to do with it?" And that's the whole caring. In the back, you can see quite a few of the books that I've worked on and what's happened in the years following when I shifted 11 years ago to helping others. I realized I could make a bigger difference there. And I used to talk about value. I would say, I would start though, remember when it was all about mission statements for companies, and then they went to vision statements. We moved through that decade, and then we went into values.
And can I bring up something?
Yes.
Right. And I just want to put some context around this, because what you're definitely describing is the corporate space, right? And so many of us,
entrepreneurial space too.
Sure.
But any growth of any initiative that people have. I'm talking about companies and even small companies.
And small companies.
Yes.
But I also want to put some context around the individual.
Right? Absolutely.
And
that's where I was going. Yeah.
So many people place their value and their worth based on the job that they're doing. And that's not 100% correct, right? We take who we are, the value and worth of who we are, and we either infuse that in the company that we're working for or growing with, or we create a company based on that worth and value, knowing that we have something to contribute and offer. So for those people listening, I just wanted to interject and infuse that in what you were saying, Melissa, because it's a key point in all of what you're talking about and how you work with us as authors. And that inspiration always goes back to the individual.
And I think that's perfect, because that's exactly where the intersection is. When we shifted to core values, and if you look online, you can look at companies and what their values are, and that's where networking starts. And it starts with individuals, to your point, Saudia, around what are your top core values. And with other people who wanted to do that, I used to work together and hold networking events, and they'd be interactive events that focused on figuring out first your top core values. And the beautiful thing was we would have events with upwards of 300, 400, even 1,000 people, and they were able to connect more powerfully when they understood and they recognized, what's my worth? What are my values? How do I leverage my values? So I will point out now, more than anything, and we'll say it each time we're on here, that I do have a book that I give away now. It's called The Great Exchange. It's step 4 of networking and expanded, but it takes you from your values and identifying them, leveraging them, connecting with others, and building communities of support. And that is a giveaway. Right now, what I say is, this is my give back time. And that's what I want to do. I want to give people a process to build these support networks And I'm very happy to say that I'll throw a shout out to Billy Dexter because I finally finished our book where we blended our methodologies with a book called Making Your Network. And we'll get Billy there. You got it? Okay, go get that book. It always helps when you have your library behind you. And
Which is why
that's it. That's it. And turn the back so they can see, if they can see Billy's picture, not too small, but
that's Billy and that's Melissa.
Yeah, and it's been a wonderful journey because it started in 2002 and we didn't he came to a writer's workshop in 2008, and it wasn't until 2015 that we actually started working on his book.
Yeah.
And then I had to go to the Willis Tower every other week, and we worked on that book for 2 years, brought it out. Now, 5 years later, at the beginning of this year, I started working on the course. And so now my vision of that course, and I hope it's Billy's too, I think it is to get it into the hands of as many people as possible. And I'll be sharing in the future some of the secrets that Billy has created, because I did get to run a Best Networkers in the World contest at Regis, the shared office space. Folks gifted me like a business center one year. And I thought, in exchange for marketing, and I thought, okay, I'm going to have a contest. And that was 2002. And Billy was one of 10 people who won an award. They were like Oscars. And with his continuity, his tenacity, he stayed in touch with me, and we'd meet truly once a year, every year over the course of basically 20 years.
And I will say it is a phenomenal read. It's a great book with a lot of creating connection hubs and reflections and pointers.
You just let out a secret. That's one of the big
well, you better, it's totally a possibility, and it's really beautiful, and it's in the book. One thing that we were talking about, that I think is important, as we at the top of this reflected on, individual worth and individuals understanding their worth. And the importance of that, because we have people in our world who don't value themselves or other lives. And unfortunately, we did experience yet another tragedy. And one of the things that Melissa and I are very keen on, as you said, is, really amplifying individuals who are making a difference in the world. And hopefully some of what we bring forth can help you in your journey, as we are we, right, Melissa?
Yes.
We
are we, and we is what it's all about. We, the people, we are a collective, and we are sorely in need of connection and bringing your worth there in building your own vibrant community where there are, and this is the heart of networking, which is building mutually beneficial relationships. There's an exchange, a great exchange, and it runs 7 levels of support. And that's all free in the guidebook for networking, for people to understand in this book called The Great Exchange, that you can, and it's very possible that you can create a wonderful, vibrant community that will support one another. And there's nothing like that. And we have wonderful communities all over the world. But I do know through the 20 plus years I taught people how to network, and I had the wonderful benefit of being in an accounting firm where they had a training arm, and they worked with 300 accounting firms. So I got to work with accounting firms and banks and law firms and entrepreneurs and individuals, and also with LinkedIn, I was the networking coach on 6-figure jobs for individuals, helping 3,000 of them learn LinkedIn over 10 years. So with all that, like you're talking about worth to wealth, what line I'll give you is, I'd rather teach people to be pie bakers than trying to get your piece of the pie. let's bake, let's create, let's connect. And that's step 5 of networking, which is all about co-creation.
And
Yeah,
so
networking is that, yes.
here's what I want to just draw for those of individuals who are watching, because everything that you've just said is incredible privilege. I mean, to be able to have 20 years of success and access, where there are individuals who do not have, or in a mindset to have the perception of not having access, and
Yeah.
really freeing them up to know, as an example, you have had great opportunities which have afforded you this space of knowledge and wisdom.
Yes.
I too, in our conversations, share my experiences, as well as, you know, really charting a path several years, if you will, behind you. And we have to look at those who have achieved and listen to the insight and wisdom that they share, because what you have just shared is valuable experience, which adds to that personal
Mhm.
growth, right?
Mhm.
And so for those who are newly on their journey, very much like what you said earlier, if they even feel that their value is 5%, I'm going to challenge you to feel higher. I'm going to
That's right.
challenge you to feel that your value and your worth is more, right?
Absolutely. It's guaranteed
It,
and absolutely there. And I love that you bring up the people who don't have as much access. And what I'm saying is every scintilla of effort that I give every day, every bit of desire is to give access. And that's why we're here now,
yes.
to give the guidebook away, to offer. Right now, we're betaing and giving the course away. And the goal is those in need who are ready and are ready to leverage their worth, there shouldn't be roadblocks to stop.
No,
We
exactly.
don't want that. Yeah.
We want to encourage people to throw out the perceived barriers. Now, historically, there have always been barriers for marginalized communities. We know this, the statistics
Yeah.
are there, right? And those of us who have, in a sense, had access, who have access,
Yes.
we are here to encourage you, any of you out there, that you too have it, but it's throwing away the mindset, right? When we talking
Yes.
about an abundant mindset, you can
Yes.
also have an abundant mindset for your worth and your value. Even, like I said, if it doesn't amount to what's in your account, it's a building step-by-step process. And that's what's so beautiful about networking and the publishing side of it. There was something that we mentioned that we would talk about today, which was the power of authorship and
The
why
power of authorship. And I think there are a lot of people, in the time we have left, and I know you and I talked about a little bit about origin. I do want to point out, because so many people through the years, you never know what people assume about you, but they assume that I just had it all. I grew up truly in a crazy environment. My mother acquired 17 dogs, never had clothing at all other than hand-me-downs until my aunt taught me how to sew. So I figured, okay, that's when I finagled my dad to give me $50 to go down to the fabric store, and I made a whole wardrobe. And it changed the whole perception with the popular kids at school. And I don't even know if they know that. Like, they're connected to me, a number of them on Facebook now. But it was a hellish childhood. I grew up with very little and didn't have the wherewithal. My dad lost the money he was going to give us to go to college. I got a first year, but after that I was on my own. I ended up going to undergrad, grad, and law school owing $90,000 worth of loans. It took me 18 years to pay those back. And so I know what scrimping, scraping, not having enough, and pulling myself up by my bootstraps was all about. And with that, knowing, to your point, Saudia, not feeling worthy, but building little by little by little. And now understanding that the way I build worth for
Yes.
myself is to help others build worth for themselves.
Yes. And thank you for sharing that, because it's so important for people to be able to see themselves in our conversations, because when we are having, the whole goal is for us to share our personal conversations with public. And one of the things that I value is knowing who you are and how you've gotten to where you are. And the more as individuals we can be vulnerable to share that space, the more that we can encourage individuals to seek within themselves at the moment where they may not be clear on who they are and what's important to them, that we can maybe encourage them through having these conversations, recommending books either that we've written or that we know are in the pipeline that offer insight and wisdom, so that you too can achieve your greatest dreams. And so I will leave it at that. And, Melissa, this is such a great time to connect with you. I mean, I think one of these times we'll have to do it in person, just because.
Oh, yes, we will. Yes. We can. Yes.
Yes.
Looking forward to it every other Tuesday. And I would say you can find a way to connect with me, to ask for a guidebook. It's in a fillable PDF form. You can go to Networlding, Networlding, instead of networking, Networlding.
Yes. And let's put that in there in the chat. I'm going to.
So it's networlding.com, or type in Networlding, and you can always get to me by typing in Melissa G. Wilson in Google.
And the other thing that we should note, I've got your information scrolling down at the bottom, is definitely check in with us on our social media. Melissa's pretty active on Instagram, but extremely active on LinkedIn. Sorry for those of you who had a bit of a delay. We had a bit of technical difficulties today. We will repost this so that it posts on LinkedIn. We appreciate you, but we say at this point, more than anything, it's important to take time for yourself. And
it is very much. And I know the last thing I want to say, Saudia, because it connects us to where we're going with publishing, because it is a content-driven world. There's so many people who are coming to me who want to write their memoirs. And one of the little suggestions I'll give you, because I'm a big fan of Substack, is try Substack. It's a great way to start your story and build a following. And by the way, I keep telling my husband, he keeps wanting to publish, but doesn't have the following yet. And that's why we're here too. Start slowly, build a following. It will start to accelerate, and you will gain momentum one step at a time. And there'll be I think you'll find a real healing to start telling your story, because you're important and you have worth.
Make it a great rest of the week. Yes. And we'll see you not next week, but the week after.
Thank you, Saudia. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, everyone.